I will be your host today. We are joined by Oliver Nelson, our Director of Engineering, and also joined by Marcelo Nashbar. He is one of our software developers here at Mertech. Oliver will be reviewing Evolution's benefits and key features in regards to working with multiple languages. And at the end, Marcelo will be showing a demo on how easy it is to use Evolution API server with multiple languages and how fast it really performs. So you want to make sure to stick around for the whole presentation. You're in for a good treat. But before we dive in, I want to touch on a couple of housekeeping items. First thing, all attendee lines are muted. However, we want to make this training as interactive as possible, so I encourage you to ask your questions throughout the webinar via the GoToWebinar question box right there in front of you. I'll be monitoring your questions, and Oliver and Marcelo will address them during our Q&A time after the presentation. Also, this training is being recorded. As attendees, you will receive a link to the recording via an email by tomorrow. It will also be available on mertechdata.com and on our YouTube channel where all our past trainings reside. Today's presentation is number 6 in the Evolution training series. As you see in your screen here, shows our past topics on Evolution. These are all very thorough technical trainings, about 1 hour long. So we've done a webinar on introduction to Evolution, building APIs using object relational modeling, building secure APIs in Evolution, building an application front end with Evolution, testing and deploying your first application with Evolution. So if you have missed any of these, please feel free to view them on mertech.com or our YouTube channel. But first, to kick off our webinar, we're going to start with a quick poll right now. We are curious, folks. Let's see. I'm going to launch it right here. If you see a question right in front of you, does your application currently have an API? If you could take a second to answer yes, no, or working on it, I will go ahead and share those totals with everybody after I give you a few seconds to answer that. So you can go ahead and say yes, no, or working on it. Okay, great. I see a lot of participation here. Okay, a couple more seconds here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close it, and I'll share that with our panelists. All right, so it looks like most of you are working on it. That's great. Thanks for participating on that. We'll have another poll later as well. But anyway, with that information, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Oliver. Oliver will go ahead and kick us off with the benefits of Evolution and what makes it a very different API development tool. Oliver?
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're all able to see my screen again. The focus of today's webinar is to show how Evolution can be used in other programming languages. A lot of what we've done in the past is focused on just one language, and now we're going to look at Evolution in relation to specifically C# and Java. But first off, kind of want to review what exactly Evolution provides. Evolution is a server technology that allows you to easily expose an API via multiple protocols without worrying about the implementation details of those protocols. So if you think about lots of programming languages and environments that are out there right now, the tool you choose in relation to an API is predicated on the programming language and or the protocol that you wish to use in exposing your API. That's in general the case. So if you're using a .NET language, although there are some other options out there, in general people head towards WPF. And if you're using one of the many scripting languages out there, most of the time you're going to see JSON-related APIs being exposed. This isn't the case with Evolution, though. With Evolution, you have this very high-performance API tool that can help you expose your business rules that you develop in one of the languages we support that are really, the real intent here is to help customers transition their Windows desktop applications or to build new applications as SaaS models or as API-based applications. So the benefits of evolution, the benefits of doing things this way, really relate to some of the benefits of cross-language development. So as many of you know, some languages are better suited for different types of applications. Web, mobile, CGI, desktop applications, all of these have certain programming languages that are best suited for that. With evolution, you can have developers implementing business rules in your API without having to worry about what front-end language is being used. With the protocol supported by Evolution, you can access your API from nearly any platform in most any programming language. You also, this can help in moving to the cloud using these technologies, and you can leverage your existing code base, so your existing architecture, which of course saves time and money. One of the other things that can be beneficial is the built-in testing interface that's included with Evolution, which we're going to show during the demo time as well. And Evolution was designed with open source stacks in mind. So although on these Windows platforms, a lot of times we're not using an open source stack, more and more companies are wanting to integrate some of these open source technologies. They're wanting to not use IIS because of the difficulties associated with that, and look at something like Apache or even Nginx. And they're wanting to integrate PHP into their application stack because of the huge number of PHP developers that are on the market right now. So Evolution allows you to do all of these things fairly easily, and you can go ahead and create a very modern web-based UI that separates the display from the actual business rules. And of course, because of the very standard protocols that are used in Evolution, there's lots of third-party software available that you can use along with it. So the key features associated with Evolution, first off, we have the multi-language support on the server side. When you're developing your API, right now the languages that we have support for are C#. Java support is something we're going to show off for the first time today. It's not quite out yet, but that's coming very soon, and we're going to show it to you today. DataFlex is a first-class language for Evolution, and also VB and VB.NET are supported. And the protocols that you can expose these APIs with include JSON RPC, SOAP, Thrift Binary, and Thrift Compact. So let me go over these in a little bit more detail. JSON RPC is very similar to XML RPC, which is a remote procedure protocol that's been around for a long time. JSON RPC is meant to get rid of some of the difficulties associated with XML and replace those with JSON, of course. And so it's actually a very simple protocol to implement. Even if a client language doesn't have direct support for JSON RPC, it's very similar to just doing a standard POST or RESTful style call with JSON. So even in languages that may not have direct support for it, it's very easy to use still. We also support SOAP, especially since we're focusing on business applications being able to transition to this API model. SOAP is really a necessity there. And then we have for either server-to-server communications, or as we'll see later for mobile applications, we also have support for Thrift Binary and Thrift Compact. Thrift is a protocol that is managed by the Apache Foundation and was created by Facebook. And it was intended for server-to-server communications originally. And it's a very fast binary protocol that allows for, in many cases, thousands of calls per second to take place. The Thrift Compact version is simply one that includes some simple compression features so that if you're transferring large binary objects, you have a way of lowering the amount of actual bandwidth consumed there. So those are the protocols right now that Evolution supports, and those are all supported in a very API agnostic way, as we'll see later on. There are also features in Evolution that are really intended to help the API developers as they're building their APIs. First up, we have an API testing interface that allows you to test your API calls either in JSON RPC or SOAP right from a web interface that's built into Evolution. So we've actually got a whole webinar that was focused on that. I believe it was our last webinar where we went over the API testing in detail. And we also have support for CORS. CORS is cross-origin resource sharing. And basically when you're developing a web application where an API may be on a different domain than the application itself, one of the things that causes developers a lot of trouble is a protection in the browser that prevents calling APIs outside of your domain. So if I was on Mertech.com and I tried to call an API on even one of our other domains that we own, mertechdata.com, I would receive a cross-origin resource sharing error if the server on Mertech Data didn't support CORS, which allows it to give permission for another domain to make an API call. It's actually this. There's a whole bunch of details to it, but all that really matters to you is that Evolution has CORS support built in. So you don't have to worry about those sorts of calls causing you problems and having to track down the exact cause of them. Evolution has all of that support built in, and actually it's an area that we've been extending recently as well. Evolution also has a very simple management interface included. And this management interface allows you to basically work with your deployment of your application without having to do too much in the way of coding. So it's a GUI-based application. We also have an MMC snap-in so that an IT department can just put this into their existing management console and or set up a new console specifically for managing application servers, and it makes deploying applications very simple. There's no worries related to registry settings or anything like that because the management interface allows you to set up a new application very easily, and we're going to show this very briefly towards the end of our webinar today. So next up, we're actually going to do another poll, and so maybe Abby can come in and do this poll for us.
Okay, guys, we've got another poll here. Question is, what programming languages are you currently using? Go ahead and check off all that apply for you. Okay, give you a couple more seconds here. Okay, wonderful. Hold on, let me close that so Oliver can see the results. There you go. Oliver, do you see that? So it looks like most of our attendees are using DataFlex and Java and C#.
In Java, yeah, and
Great.
And I'm very curious about the large percentage of other too. I'm feeling lots of people are using some of these scripting languages as well as part of that.
Okay, thanks for participating on that poll.
So that's an overview of evolution in general. One of the specific areas I want to talk about right now is how the Thrift interface that is in evolution compares to a WCF, a Windows Communication based binary protocol. And many times if you're using .NET as your application stack, the place you're going to turn right off the bat to this sort of API communication is WCF. There are some real advantages going with Thrift, though. Thrift has gained a lot of support recently, and in fact, there's a couple of articles that we're going to be linking to on our website that compare Thrift with RESTful interfaces and SOAP interfaces and things like that. So Thrift has actually gained a lot of popularity recently. And when we compare it to something like WCF, one of the things we see right off the bat is that WCF, when you use their binary format, which is their really high speed, it's their highest performance format, you're limited to essentially a .NET only environment. There's some people who played with implementing it in other languages, but this support is really only solid in .NET. Whereas Thrift has very broad compatibility that way, and in fact, we're gonna go through a little bit about that later. Another thing that, of course, that limits you on is cross-platform compatibility. Although WCF has their binary implementation available in Mono via C# on Linux, the number of platforms that you're able to use it on is very small in comparison to Apache's Thrift, which is implemented even on mobile platforms, as we'll see later on as well also. WCF in their binary form is a very fast transport. It's not unusual to see thousands of calls per second. But as we'll see when Marcelo does our demo, Apache Thrift is also very fast, and in many cases we're going to see at least 2 times the speed using Thrift binary versus the TCP binary encoding of WCF. So we're going to take a little bit more detailed look at that. One of the other things that has limited WCF binary from being used from other places is the fact that their protocol is proprietary in comparison to the published protocol that you get with Apache Thrift. And as I mentioned before, we have a mobile-friendly interface versus a .NET-only environment. And there's also this multi-language code generator. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later, that comes with Apache Thrift. And of course, you do have something similar in WCF that will generate .NET code for you from a service contract. But this sort of transparent interoperability that we get is really a big deal. No changes are required in an evolution-based API to change the transport or protocol that your API is served via. So you can test your API in JSON RPC, and you can deploy it as a Thrift service, and you don't have to worry about changing anything in your code at all. You select right in our management interface how you want to serve that API. So if I switch over to our Evolution administrator and I take a look at, for instance, this C# based application pool that I have open in our administrator, you can see that I've selected here HTTP and JSON RPC as my transport and protocol. I can just as easily stop this service and change the transport and change the protocol to something else. I can change it to a TCP-based protocol, a socket-based protocol, and run Thrift binary. Reduce that a little bit so it's a little faster. Save this and start this up, and I'm running the exact same application using both a different transport and a different protocol, as easy as that. There's a huge benefit to that in comparison to what would be required to pull that off using something like WCF or other interfaces. This is the sort of thing that you see done on enterprise buses, where you may want to serve a protocol where they may have you base all your application code in SOAP, and then they will serve other protocols. With Evolution, you can do it right from the simple admin tool. It's a very lightweight, thin interface to use. Part of Evolution is the inclusion of IDLs and WSDLs. So an IDL is an interface description language that's generated by our Thrift-based interface, and they're referred to as .thrift files, is commonly what you'll see them called. And a WSDL is a web service definition, is the web service definition language. They call them WSDLs very often for SOAP. And Evolution generates for your API both an IDL and a WSDL that are accessible no matter what transport and protocol you're using. One of the other things that really is a benefit with Evolution is support for date times. So Thrift doesn't really have any sort of built-in way of handling date times. Various implementations have done different things for how they implemented it. Whereas in SOAP and JSON RPC, we have a very standard way of handling date times with ISO 8601 base dates. So to handle date times in Thrift, we added support for what's called an OA date, which is an OLE automation date. And basically, an OLE automation date is stored in a float type data type, and the whole number portion of that value records the number of days since, I believe, December 30th, 1899 at midnight, and then the decimal portion records the time of the day. And it's a very standard format that's pretty easy to decode in lots of languages. And so we actually support, if your API is using a date time and you're using Thrift, rather than just leaving you to solve that problem on your own, we've added support to make that easier for you to work with. And there's even a setting that you can turn on that will convert the date times that are coming in to the local time of your machine to help you with this whole time zone issue that causes people so many grief. So that's built in here as well. One of the other things that's really nice about Thrift in particular in relation to this IDL is that you have quick client code generation. So Thrift includes a code generator that supports AS3, C, C++, C#, Objective-C, Delphi, Erlang, Go, Haskell, Java, JavaScript, OCaml, Perl, PHP, Python, and Ruby. So you have the ability to call your API from a myriad of languages. Very nice. Next up, we're going to quickly talk about the scalability of Evolution. We have a process-based application pool that has a multi-threaded intelligent message dispatcher managing not only incoming requests, but also the lifetime of processes for you. So it makes Evolution very scalable. We have a non-blocking implementation. It's meant to be used behind an Apache load balancing server. Even if you're using Thrift, which is a binary protocol, if you use it over the HTTP transport, you can still have a free load balancer sitting in front of it. And of course, our installer makes it very easy to deploy on infrastructure as a service-based providers. So now we're going to go ahead and get into our demo with Marcelo. So I'm going to switch over here and turn the screen over to Marcelo, and he's going to show us how you can go about creating a C# and Java-based Evolution API.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. For the demonstration, we are going to start. Hope everyone is seeing my screen. This is a sample of an existing project which has some code doing queries against a PostgreSQL. We are just want to simulate a scenario where you have some existing code and show how it is easy to transform that, to expose that as API calls using Evolution. To start, we are going to install the Evolution using the package Nugget, and I'm going to install here, install package Evolution developer version, and from the project we have a couple of things that had been added. There is this README with some information and a couple of classes. This one is an example about the API class that we can use for testing, and an evolution helper class, which should help us to implement the server calls. We also have the reference added. We have an evolution server, which is the connector for the C# evolution version, and plus the evolution interface. So we are going to start coding that. I'm going to grab that, creating using evolution helper. These are the commands I have in my main program, just an example. I'm instantiate this class customer, which has some query operations you are going to see in a few seconds. I'm just going to comment out these lines. And defining the server, we are going to use the evolution standard server. Creating that. We need to use here as the object API we want to expose, and we are going to use the customer class, and we are just going to reference these services as evolution service is the name I'm going to give to the server. Then we just need to start, and we have a few parameters we have to provide. Then I'm going to use the port 8081. The protocols, we have all these options. I'm going to start with the JSON RPC and the transport layer. I'm going to use the HTTP. These couple of lines are just enough to define the server. As the developer version, if you are going to deploy that, we are going to use another helper class, but it's simpler as that. I'm changing that as API server because we are going to run that as an API. If we go back here for the example, we see this attribute, published attribute. This is the attribute that handles and tells the evolution which function we want to expose as an API. I just need to add this using for the evolution server and compile and run. We're just running the server. The application is running. If you remember, we are using the 8081. In here, we have the testing interface, which is built in tool we have. And from here, we have, for example, the list of functions we have exposed. And we can use this interface to try out and see what is going on. I mean, we can use that for testing and debugging as well. You see we have only one function exported here. If we go back to the customer class, I have some other functions I'm going to expose. So we just need to add this publish attribute. I have more photo. Oops. Let me stop the stopping. And adding the attribute, another function call. Just compiling and running. The server is running again. I'm going to refresh my browser. And now we can see we have all the other two functions. If I just selected that, you can see the attributes is coming with some example data that it can use. Also the attribute names. So I just need to call that, and we have the data. Let's try one thing else. Is you see the balance field here? We have a 1400. We have this function. We can call and change this value to 1500. Running that, I'm just calling the function to get the customer data once and again, and we have a field changed. There is another thing I want to show you, which is the comparison between Evolution and WCF service. I have here a project that is exposing some service. Basically, is a simple service. I just took from the Microsoft examples, WCF services examples, and it is simulating a calculator which is doing the basic operations. And for this code we have here, you see the code for the WCF, and this is the code for the Evolution server, which is pretty similar one with the other. We just have to, let me go back here. We just have to add the attribute to expose the function calls. I'm calling the examples. And basically, the views you see on the top are the servers. On the left is the WCF service. On the right, we have the Evolution server, which is exposing the functions. If you see here, we have the IDL information about the exposed functions. You see you have add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So we starting the WCF service client call. You see it's taking 3 seconds. I'm calling once and again.
And that's doing 10,000 calls. It's doing 2,500 of each call.
Yes. And basically we are using for the WCF the NetTCP call, which is the ending point using TCP and binary messages. And we are calling these 2,500 operations, which one? In total, we have 10,000 operations being done against this service. If we run the same operation against the Evolution, you see Evolution is taking 1.8 seconds. Let's run once and again. It's taking 1.3 once and again. It's 1.4. If we have some comparison with the results we have for WCF, we can see that Evolution is 2 times faster than WCF. Oh, we have another thing that I want to show you is a Java application. You can see from here, I'm just calling the Java virtual machine and running this application. This is a basic application I just replicated from the C# code and defining the same service. And you can see I'm going to start that using port 91. Service started. I'm going to use the same client application and calling that using Thrifty binary and framed transport. And we can see here it's going to take 1 second and 1.7 second running again. Oops.
You accidentally changed it.
Yeah, I dropped it. And we have a 1.7. So basically, what you can see here, we can switch client applications. We can mix Java and C# running one against the other. I could use the Java application as a Evolution server, as we can see here, and the C# as a client and vice versa. This all possible, and there is nothing else that you have to change besides the server parameters you have. Basically, this is what we have so far, and for the demonstration, and I'm switching back to Oliver.
Thank you, Marcelo. Well, to review what Marcelo showed, let's think about what he showed for just a moment there. He was able to serve multiple protocols and transports from the same API with no code changes. So he, in a simple application there, he did a drop-down for that. He showed the testing interface that was included there. And in our last webinar, we went over the process of deploying an application. And so we saw that previously already. And one of the other things that we talked about in a prior webinar that I just want to reiterate is the fact that these servers can be placed behind a load balancer like Apache, like the Apache web server, to allow for very large installations. So even you can deploy as a single server setup for a very simple deployment model, or it scales very well. And as you saw there, these API calls are extremely fast. When we're comparing to WCF, which is a very well-established binary protocol, Evolution is very performant in those cases. And even running with the Java connector, we're seeing very good performance out of that as well. So we've got just this really, really fast server for you to use, a blazingly fast server that you can use for these binary types of calls, but you can also support these web applications using JSON RPC, interacting with business applications using SOAP as well. So we're going to do one more quick demo. And one of the things we've had people ask for in relation to Evolution is basically some sample code using Evolution from mobile platforms. And so we're actually in development right now on two different samples. One of them is an iOS example, and the other one is an Android example. And we're going to take a look at the Android example today with one of our developers, David Finocchi. And so I'm going to turn control over to David. And he's just going to show us that application very briefly. It's still in development right now. And so David, why don't you go ahead and show us what you've been working on. I have no audio from you, David.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what happened there, but I've been developing an Android application that's making calls to the Thrift server using HTTP, and it's built using the Android standard development kit. And here we're going to make a login call. assumes that the server is not responding.
Give it another try.
Okay. There we go. And then it brings us into a customer list screen. And as you can see, when we scroll down towards the bottom of the page, it'll do another call to getting 30 more customers here, and there it just loaded in. So we implemented an infinite scroll that's making thrift calls.
And we're actually going to implement like a full CRUD interface for the customer, and this is calling our Evolution API, our customer order entry API that we have available at evolution.mertechdata.com. And so we're going to release the source to these applications. A couple of questions for you, David. Before we had you start building the sample application, have you ever touched Thrift before?
No, I have not.
And what has your first impression been so far?
My first impression is that it's extremely easy to implement, as all I had to do was use the multi-language code generator and tell it to generate Java code, which gave me all my calls you see over here. And all I had to do was tie those in with the Android SDK, and it was fairly simple.
So there were no difficulties with doing this on mobile, really, in comparison to if you were developing this with web or anything like that. It was just about the same.
Yes, exactly. It was just about the same. It was fairly simple, and it was actually quite amazing. I never worked with anything like this before, but it just blew my mind.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. And now we're going to just take a look at a couple more little things here. So, David, if you can turn control back over to my machine. Like I mentioned, we also have an iOS application in development as well, and so we're going to be releasing the source code to those, and we're also going to put them into the App Store so you can download them and play with them directly on your device once those are completed. In this case, the one thing I wanted to mention in relation to this is that to set up the connection that David is using and that the iOS application is using, I simply created another copy of one of our existing applications in here, another entry in the server, and in this case we're running an HTTP transport with Thrift binary. Set the pool size, hit save, press play, and that was all that was required to get this service running for him. Didn't know exactly how he was going to do it. I'm not a Java programmer myself, and within a day he was able to get this up and running. So it makes development on mobile applications very easy as well. So that's really the highlights of what we wanted to go over. If you haven't yet downloaded Evolution, you can do that either by using the NuGet package that's available by just doing an install package evolution.developer. That'll grab the latest version. Or you can download it at mertech.com/evolution. I also wanted to give you guys some information on our introductory pricing that we have for Evolution right now. An Evolution Basic server goes for $495, and this is limited to a 3-process pool, so you can have a single pool with 3 processes in it. It's really meant for very light-duty applications where maybe you have an optional API that people can hit to do very low load based API calls. And then we have our standard server, which is unlimited on a single local server. You can set up as many application pools of whatever size you wish for $19.95. And then we have our cloud edition, which is intended for distribution on cloud-based servers, and also has unlimited setup for $29.95. And that's pretty much our presentation today. Abby?
Okay, thank you, Oliver. Now, folks, this is our Q&A time. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and input that in the question console. No, okay. So what we're going to do is, sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, folks. We're going to give you some information on how to contact us in case you do have any questions. Oliver can be reached at email, or you can also send an email to sales@mertechdata.com or give us a call via phone. We also have a lot of information on our website with white papers and other webinars. And want to thank you again, panelists and all our attendees, for logging in today. As a reminder, you will be getting a follow-up email from me with a link to the recording. So you could feel free to share this with any of your colleagues or communities as you see fit. Also, you will be seeing a webinar survey at the end of the session. If you could take a few seconds to fill that out, that helps us out a lot in the Mertech team. But anyway, we hope to see you at our next training, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.